Hey, I'm Delise.
And I'm Jenny.
We know that parenting comes in seasons, and even the smallest wins deserve a happy dance.
Join us as we chat with moms in every stage of the parenting journey, fixing our eyes on Jesus each step of the way.
This is Blessings and Motherhood, because we believe that you can hold tissues and confetti at the same time.
Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Blessings in Motherhood. Today we got to talk to a wonderful mama, Laura Hernandez. She owns Mama Systems. It's all online. We'll tell you guys where to check that out. But today's conversation is so encouraging, talking about being intentional in your home, about cultivating peace and organizations and systems so that your family can thrive.
Yeah, so you don't want to miss this one. Let's jump right on in. Hey, Laura, welcome to Blessings and Motherhood.
Thank you guys for having me today. I'm really excited to be here and to chat with y'all.
Yes, we are so excited to get to chat with you about peaceful making home and organization and all that. But before we get into that, could you tell us, for our listeners, just a little bit about yourself, how many kids you have, where you're at in your family life right now?
Yeah, so my husband and I live in the Dallas area, and we have 10 kids, and 3 of those are adopted out of foster care and have special needs. And our oldest is 18 and is graduating this year. And I officially homeschooled one child all the way through. So I feel like that's a big win, you know?
That's awesome.
That is a confetti moment right there.
Yeah, our littlest buddy is 4, and he's a Mother's Day out 2 days a week, but next year he'll be in kinder and it'll be so fun.
Yay. That's so great. And so for those of you who don't know, Laura is the founder of something called Mama Systems. Can you tell us just a little bit about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So several years ago, I kind of realized that the Lord has gifted me in the area of systems. There's not, when you try to think about your gifts and stuff, it's always hard and kind of humbling, and like, you don't want to be braggy and you don't want to, you're walking this fine line. But the Lord's really encouraged me just to embrace that. Of like, hey, this is my gifting. There's a lot of things I'm not gifted at, but I'm really good at this. And so I would go over to people's houses and it would feel so chaotic. But I would come to ours and we had 10 kids, and I mentioned that we have special needs buddies. Our 3 have FASD, which is fetal alcohol spectrum disorder, and it's a thing. It's a big thing, and there's a lot of behaviors that go along with that, and a lot of emotions that go along with that are just not typical for the typical family. But I'd be in our house and it would be peaceful. And I was like, there's something here. Like, I don't know what it is, but what I realized is just creating that intentionality throughout the day has been such a blessing, and being really intentional with our time blocks and how we spend our day. And so I started encouraging other moms in that and helping them kind of navigate their homes and creating specific systems for them. And that was just for friends. And then I realized, oh my goodness, this could be a business. And so now I have courses and coaching and all of that. And so
that's so cool. I love how you said that when you would come back to your house, you noticed that it was peaceful. That's actually something that we would love to just take a 40,000 foot view conversation about, because I think we understand fundamentally what it is to be at peace, but we don't really talk about what that means a lot. So how would you define peace, and how do you think the Bible defines peace?
Yeah, I think about Jesus being with us. Just that I often do kind of when I'm feeling chaotic inside, or when things are going chaotic around me, I often think about the disciples in the boat and how freaked out they were, and how Jesus is just napping in the back. And I think about how I want my response to be to go cuddle up with Jesus in the back. And I don't want to be in the boat like with the waves and all of that. Like, I want to feel safe in his arms. And so that's kind of what I envision as being peaceful. And so that doesn't mean that everybody's quietly behaving and doing what they're supposed to be doing at all times, because that is rarely the case. Like, hear me say that. I do not have perfect little angel children. And I know there are probably some moms out there that do. I do not. They are kind of a hot mess sometimes. And our house is not always organized and clean and all of that, but your heart can be at peace, and you can be at peace in the chaos. And I think a lot of that comes with just planning out intentionality throughout your day.
Yeah. Jenny, I want to hear from you on this one too. When I was thinking about, like, what does the Bible say about peace, and what do I envision when I think about being a mother or a wife of peace. I actually did think of Proverbs 31. And when it says that the heart of her husband safely trusts her, and just that idea that even when he might not know all the details of the things that she's doing to take care of the household, he understands that she is operating in a very intentional way. And so he trusts her to handle that. And of course, it's not because we're going to get it right every time, but we can be trusted because we're holding on to the one who can be trusted, and his name is Jesus. And he's teaching us how to become trustworthy wives and trustworthy moms, and therefore we're constantly refining the way that we operate in our households so that things can be peaceful. So anyway, that's what I thought of, but what did you think of?
Yeah, no, it's funny because you wrote down a note and I wrote down a note at the same time, and it was Proverbs 31. Really? But I looked at a different verse, actually, verse 27, and I pulled it up here real quick. It says, "She looks well to the ways of her household and does not eat the bread of idleness. Her children rise up and call her blessed. Her husband also, and he praises her," which is kind of like what you were talking about. But I love how it just talks about how the mother, the wife, looks at her household, which means, again, it's back to that intentionality. But you have to be intentional with your home. And I don't think that always just means cleaning up or making a meal. I think it means taking the time to know your children and what they need and what is peace for them. Taking the time to talk to your husband. What does he need to be peaceful? Is it to come home to a meal, or is it to have a made-up bed, or does he not care about those things? And does he just want you to give him a hug when he gets home? Because I think peace can look different to anybody in any home. It means something different to me and to you and probably to Laura as well. And I love, Laura, how you said your home's not always organized, but your heart's at peace. And I think sometimes as moms, we can forget that part of it and get sucked into the chaos and the disorganization that might be around us. And that's where we have to, like you said, go back and cuddle up with Jesus in the back of the boat. I love that mental picture. I'm all about mental pictures. So I just love that was said. So Laura, I definitely went on your website a little bit. I may have signed up to receive your free little organizational chart, but I love that you give those resources. You talk about so many different things and you give a lot of practical advice. And you talked a little bit about how you kind of came to see that you were good at organizing homes and things like that. You went to someone else's house and you came home and you were able to compare those things. What do you think it was that really just opened to your eyes that you can help other moms out there and gave you that confidence to go out and do that and create these systems for moms?
Yeah. Jesus speaks, period, the end. I feel like I kind of dance around that because I don't want to over spiritualize things, right? But driving in the car one day, I heard so clearly that I needed to start this business and that I needed to write a book, which we're not talking about right now. But it was just so clear to me. And I think that was kind of the confidence that I needed was, you know what, he's got this. And who cares if it fails, if you like that fear of failing and what are people going to think and all of that. I was kind of like, well, who cares? Like I can do it for a little while and drop it or keep going and love it forever. So yeah, I think it was just knowing that's the good work that I've been set out to do.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah. When I first went onto your website, I noticed right in big bold you have on there, it says, "I know you can do it all, but please don't." And that really captured me because I think in this world of trying to do it all and not ask for help, us mamas forget that sometimes. And I'm just curious, why do you think that we always go there as moms? And you too, Delise, why do you think we always can get kind of trapped into that chaos or feel like we have to do it all for our families?
Yeah, so I think the beautiful, perfect picture, like on Instagram that we see, right, of homemade bread, mom's looking all cute, her children are dressed nicely in their smocked outfits. Like you kind of look at that and you're like, well, crap, like my Goodwill clothes are not very smocky, it's just kind of a conglomeration of children and messes and all the things, right? And it feels disheartening. And so we look at this like beautiful, whatever we see is like the perfect picture. Like when you were talking about What does your husband need when he gets home? Is it a home cooked meal, whatever? I'm thinking like, oh yeah, I used to buy into that lie that I needed to have a clean house, that everybody needed to have their homework done, and we needed to be doing like X, Y, and Z when he walks in the door and have a hot meal. And oh my goodness, be free from that, because that's not reality. It is not reality. And it is okay to ask for help. It's okay to delegate things to your kids. It's okay that balls get dropped. Like, it's okay. And so I think that kind of that first piece of being intentional is really planning out what really is important to you, what really is important to your husband, what really matters, like in your kids' education, or all of these, I don't want to step on any toes here, but are all these extras that we're adding on to curriculums, and, an extra science class and an extra violin class, all the things that we can so easily be like, oh, we should be doing that too. Oh, well, I want my kid to know how to do this. We need to sign up for that. And we get so caught up in the chaos of life, and we just go from thing to thing, and we forget the things that really matter to us. And I think that's a big piece of this whole intentionality thing, is realizing what is important to you. Because I would have said, when we first got our three, they all came to us. We went from 4 to 8 kids in a 6-month period. And it was a lot. And we also moved across the country, and it was kind of chaotic. And I would have told you that the most important thing to me is like teaching my kids the Word of God. I want them to know Scripture. I want them to have a heart for His people. I want them to love the nations. I want these things for my kids. I want them to be godly men and women. And if you would have come into my house, you would have been like, okay, that's important to you, but what are you doing about it? Because nothing was happening. And so realizing that, having that big picture kind of vision for our family and what I want them to know and love and all of those things, like, how am I going to practically implement those in my day? Because without a system, without coming up with that game plan, it's not going to happen.
I know for me, something that keeps me back is just pride. That's the short way to put it. Like, I don't want to ask for the help because I want to be able to do it all. And I've noticed that in myself, and the Lord was like, hey, that fear of missing out in you is coming out in this way. And instead of you being able to opt into everything, you're actually missing out on the piece, and you're not able to enjoy any of it because you're driving yourself crazy trying to do all of it. So I think that's another aspect of it that we can fall into, just the fact that, especially for any mom, but especially I think if you're a full-time stay-at-home mom, part of what you're trying to get out of that is all of this time and these opportunities to be with your people and to be in your home and to tend it. But that doesn't mean that you have to be the only one doing those things in order to reap the benefits of that circumstance. And so I'd love to know if that's something you can also relate to, just that feeling of wanting to do it all because you want to be able to experience it all, and whether or not you found that kind of shot you in the foot.
Yes. And I realized I probably didn't answer your question from earlier of like what I kind of went off on
you
a
did,
tangent
yeah.
there. But yes, I'm like pride. I'm like talking about this. I'm like, I think about Brene Brown and how she kind of talks about pride being on one end and then this vulnerability piece on the other end. And the beauty of when we can drop that pride and go talk to a friend and say like, hey, I'm really struggling here. I need help. Is there any way you could help me during the day or whatever? That builds this beautiful vulnerability and community. And so I think that that's another reason I really encourage moms to just reach out to others and to ask for help. And I do think, like, even in asking my husband for help, I still struggle with, he's working all day. Like he's bringing home the paycheck. And so what my job is to manage all of this stuff. And so I feel bad putting my job on him. Does that make sense? Because this is my job. This is what I signed up for. I wanted to be a stay-at-home mom. I wanted to do it all. And I'm now asking for help with a house cleaner, or I'm now asking for help with someone to hire to help with rides. Like, however that's oozing out of me needing help, I'm like, I'm supposed to be doing that. That's what I signed up for. And it feels like I'm kind of shirking my responsibilities. But the beauty of it, like of all of this, and where I kind of settle in is, you know what? I'm very aware that I can't do it all. I'm very aware that like we were created for community and for this kind of village mentality of having others around us and to walk with us and to encourage us and to help us and kind of bear our burdens with us. And so that's what I want. Like, that's the beauty I want, is that community around me. And so if there's ways that I can ask for help or delegate something out to somebody else, I've learned I'm going to do that 1,000,000%, because that frees me up to be more present with my kids. And it frees me up to be more intentional with my kids. And if I'm driving everybody to every activity all day long, it's a whole lot harder to sit and be still and be intentional.
Yeah, you guys made me think too. I got to that point where I felt very overwhelmed by everything, and I didn't want to ask my husband for the same reasons you just said, Laura. He's bringing home the paycheck. He's got all these things I know he's thinking about. My husband's an entrepreneur. I don't know how he thinks about it all in 24 hours, not even 24 hours, like 16 hours a day. But he saw that I was struggling, and he said, "How can I help you?" And I was like, why didn't I even think to ask him for help? Our husbands want to help us out. Like, they ache to help us, I think. And I think when we go to them and ask them for help, it's showing them respect, it's showing them trust, and it's deepening our relationship with our husbands, because they are like, this is a partnership in the home. And yes, while we are the main home makers, maybe if we're stay-at-home moms or whoever we are, like, that doesn't mean our husbands don't want to help us. And that also goes into something your program actually made me think of, is our kids want to help too. And I've been seeing this a lot on social media because, it's part of my job. But, our kids want to be with us, right? And sometimes when they act out, causing not peace, causing chaos around us, it's because they just want to be with us. Mm-hmm. They want to do the things we're doing. If we're doing the dishes, they could be, your 4-year-old might be pulling at your leg like mine does. Mommy, mommy, mommy. Why don't I just invite him in to help me out? Because your chore chart includes 2 and 3-year-olds. And yes, 2 and 3-year-olds can do chores too. So not only is our community, outside our home, but it is inside our home too. And I think we often forget that in times.
Yeah, absolutely. And can I speak to maybe moms that have husbands that aren't really present and that feel like they don't have a team member? Because I think that there's a lot of those out there as well. And so if you're listening and you're thinking, my husband does not want to help me at all, and in fact, he tells me this is my job and this is what I should be doing, hey, I just want you to take a deep breath and realize that we can do it. We can reach for help outside of the home too. So talking to a friend, asking them to switch off days for dinner, or switch off time so you can have some time to yourself, or you can be more productive. There's so many creative ways. And so if that's you and you're struggling with that, I would love to help kind of walk you through that as well. So, yeah.
Hey guys, we want to take a quick break from this conversation to talk to you about the Great Wolf Lodge, and we have some wonderful discounts for you if you're interested. So the Great Wolf Lodge is an indoor water park and resort chain that offers a vacation experience with dining, shopping, family events, and kids attractions and activities. My family used to go to the Great Wolf Lodge and we definitely enjoyed it. So there are over 20 locations in the US and Canada, and the lowest rates and discounts actually happen during the fall or during the weekdays. So this is perfect for you to capitalize on if you are a stay-at-home mom or homeschooling your children. We have an exclusive discount for Classical Conversations families, and you can actually get up to 30% off. So just mention that while you're booking in order to opt into those discounts. And Jenny, you actually know about some really cool ways that CC families capitalize on this, don't you?
Yeah, you guys can talk to maybe your local directors or area representatives, because I know a few areas come together and they all go to Great Wolf Lodge at the same time to enjoy other CC families, to meet new people, and really just to have a great time together as homeschoolers.
That sounds like a blast. So for more information about the Great Wolf Lodge and the exclusive CC discount code, you can find that on CC Connected in the Learning Center. Go to Member Benefits and Additional Resources. There's a document for you there. And if you just want to look up the Great Wolf Lodge to find out if it's a good fit for you and your family, visit www.greatwolf.com.
All right, guys, let's get back to the show.
Yeah. Thank you for speaking to that, because it's true. Not every circumstance is the same, but no circumstance is hopeless. And there are definitely different ways we can lean into community. So I love that you spoke to that. And the two of you have alluded to about 3 or 4 different forms of systems or options. And I would love for you to just pull the curtain back a little bit more for us and give us some examples of systems that you have been able to create that have really changed the game for you or for other moms.
Yes. So my favorite that we do in our house, I'm asked this often, is our 5 o'clock jobs. And what I love about this is kind of the crankiest time of the day when everybody's kind of a hot mess. And people are going to activities and soccer and whatever. And so we just have kind of, it's a hubbub of all the things, right? And there's a lot of whining and everybody's hungry and all the things. And then I'm supposed to be making dinner in there with a happy heart and with my little apron on and whatever. I'm like, that's not happening. So what we did was we created this time in our day where an alarm goes off and everybody has responsibilities they're supposed to be doing. And so I go into the kitchen and I start cooking and getting dinner ready. But even our little buddies have like putting forks on the table, which sounds so silly. Like it's not a huge job, but that's one less thing you have to do. And it's training them to be a part of the team and to be a part of the family and that they have responsibilities too. And so everybody has kind of 3 responsibilities during their 5 o'clock jobs. They have one job that will help kind of get dinner on the table. And that may mean that they're watching a baby while I cook, or that they're setting out silverware, they're getting drinks, or I have one kid that their job is just to come say, Mom, how can I help right now? And that's it. It's beauty. We're training.
I love that. That's a job.
Yeah. And we're training them to show up and see how they can help, right? They're supposed to get ready for the next day. So if a kid has co-op the next day, or they need to make a lunch for something, or whatever the circumstances are, laying out their clothes, finding their shoes, finding their glasses, all of those things are done during that time. And then we also have a zone that everybody's in charge of. And so each person has their own zone and area. And I want to just kind of release you from any decision fatigue that might come up with wanting to change things up, or, giving everybody an opportunity to do X, Y, and Z. And just to settle in with what you decide for a semester, for a year. Just get there and then keep it. Because what that's going to do is going to help you remember what everybody's supposed to be doing. Because inevitably you'll go into a room and it'll be a hot mess and you'll be like, which kid was supposed to do this? Who's supposed to be cleaning this up, right? And you get all fired up and you have no idea and you have to go check it and whatever. It's just too much. But right now, if I were to go into the living room and there's blankets on the floor, I'm like, Sam, I need you to come do your jobs. Like, I know exactly who's supposed to be doing that, right? I think making those decisions ahead of time brings so much peace, and not changing them. Just keep them the same. But keep them the same. Eventually they will learn how to do things. They're learning how to see problems and fix them. And they're learning how to step up and they're learning how to help. Like those are the character qualities we want to teach them. Not necessarily, I need to know how to clean a toilet properly, which is very important, but more than the skill, it's their heart, right? It's this attitude of service and being a part of a team and the humility in that. So I think that's that's definitely my favorite. And also what I've seen during this time, because it used to be that I would be in the kitchen making dinner and they're in the living room making a mess. And I'm annoyed because they're making a mess in the room I cleaned up earlier. And now I'm gonna have to go back and clean it again. And so I'm just sitting there like stewing at my children because I'm annoyed they're destroying the house. So the beauty of this is I'm in there cooking and we're all working together at the same time. So nobody's over there relaxing. Nobody's doing whatever they want to be doing. We're all working towards a common goal. And so that's kind of the beauty of 5 o'clock jobs and why I love them so much.
So cool.
And when you kind of implemented those, did you have a conversation with all of them? Like, this is what we're going to do, and talk about that hard issue a little bit, because we all help. We're a family unit kind of thing.
Yes, absolutely. And I feel like it's very important to let your kids know that, I clean up after you often, and you may have to clean up after somebody else. And you know what? They may be in the other room cleaning up after you. And that's okay. We're all this is your job. So it doesn't matter if you made the mess or not. I don't care who made the mess. I just need you to be in charge of this room. Or I need you to be in charge of finding all the Legos all over the house and cleaning those up. So just being very specific with that, going over it over and over and over again, and just setting those really clear expectations. Because I think often we have expectations of what a clean room looks like, and our kids don't have that expectation. And they think because they put one toy away that the room is clean. And so really laying it out for them and then drilling that in over and over again. I mean, I feel like it's CC to the core of like just that repetition of things, but you got to keep going over it. And I think that's like with the systems and things throughout our day and how we're intentional with our time and how we're intentional with Jesus, like all of those things, them seeing it on repeat over and over again, like does wonders.
Yeah. And I like how you mentioned the time aspect. It does take time to do these things. The first time you tell your kids to do something, they're not going to get it the first time, right? But it's okay that it takes time. And for us to have the okayness, is that even a word, to slow down and put whatever we're doing aside and say, I need to talk with my child about, oh, they left the Legos out, but they picked up the books. Let me talk to them about, you cleaned up the books. Great job. Let's also clean up the Legos, because they don't see those things and they do have to be told. And it may take us an extra 2 to 3 minutes to explain that to them, but that's okay. We're not rushed. We don't need to be so rushed. I think you said too, at some point, like, we don't want to be so reactionary. That's why we take the intentionality and the time to plan these systems, so we don't have to react to things. We have the system in place, and we can just, instead of reacting to it, go back and remind them of it.
Yeah. And I think like visual charts and things are so helpful as well, because I'm not the bad guy. I'm not saying, go back and pick up your Legos because you didn't do that. I'm like, well, you go check your chart for me. And we have pictures of Legos, and we have pictures of books, and we have like the things they're in charge of, there's pictures of, so they can see and they know, and it's spelled out. And then that and the Alexa are the bad guys, right? Because they're reminding us.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
the chart's reminding them. So
yeah. You made me think too, when you're talking about your kids, I've got 4 kids, all between 3 and 9, and their big thing right now is, well, I didn't make that mess. And you spoke a little bit about that earlier, and I was wondering, is there any magical phrase that you have? I'm sure there's not, but because, well, Banks made that mess. I'm not going to pick that up, and I am having a big struggle right now getting them to realize it may not be your mess, but how do we want to be treated? How do we treat others? I try to bring it back to that, but how do you handle that in your home? I know you have way more kids than I do.
Not as gracefully as that. I can tell you that much. I'm kind of very matter of fact.
It's not always that graceful.
We need to deal with a heart issue for sure. But I think often in the circles I run in, there's a lot of dealing with a heart issue on every single thing. And I think that like maybe sometimes my kids just tune that out. I'll just speak from my experience. And so if they start to complain about that, I say, I don't care. I need you to clean up the room. I don't care who made the mess. You need to clean up the room. It's just matter of fact, you need to obey right now. Right. And it may not happen with a happy heart. And it may, like, there's all these things that I'm like, yes, ideally I would love for them to be like, yes, ma'am, and go do it. But reality is that they may not. They may be upset about it. But you know what? We're not going to sit down and eat dinner until you go do that job. So I need you to go do it. And I think, again, that kind of comes back with the intentionality of those conversations of deciding, okay, Bob's going to clean up the living room, and this is what that's going to look like. You're going to put the pillows away and the blankets away, and that's all. So if there's other things on the floor, you don't have to pick those up, but you do have to pick up the pillows and blankets. And so we just said it really, really clear from the get-go, talking about it doesn't matter if it's your mess or not. Like, all of those heart conversations can kind of come in the beginning of this attitude of service and this attitude of giving, right? And then the rest is just kind of modeled through us and through other kids obeying in our home, ideally.
Those expectations are key, is really what I'm hearing you say. I am thinking about the mom who's hearing you and saying, wow, she has all these awesome systems. She's already mentioned like 5 of them. And she is probably wondering, how long will it take to create or implement just one of these systems? Can you give us an expectation of what it would look like? Is it that you sit down on a day, you go take a coffee break? What does it look like to actually create one of these systems for your family?
I love that, because that's what I was going to recommend. I think that you need to go take 2 hours and sit at the coffee shop and get really clear about what your vision is for your family, and get really clear about what you want your day to look like. And kind of starting with this picture of this ideal day of everyone waking up and making their own breakfast and, coming and giving you a kiss on the cheek, or what, I'm like, whatever that is. For me, that's, hey, I need my coffee time. I need that quiet time. You don't come talk to me until it's done, right? Like, that's the most important thing of the day for everyone in this house, is me having this quiet time. And so just really figuring out what those things are for you, and what you need to implement for self-care, and what you need to implement for your kids, and what you want to be intentional with, and what really matters in your homeschooling experience. All of those things really matter. And once we get that big vision picture, then you can say, like, okay, which one am I going to focus on right now? Like, this next month, I'm really going to focus on making sure that this is a priority, and really just drilling that in and getting clear. I know I keep talking about this. It's all about expectations. Because when we have the wrong expectations, or when our kids have the wrong expectations, then that's when the attitudes come in, and that's when the disappointment comes in. And so it's hard to have a happy heart when you're ticked that it's not going the way you want it to go. And so having those realistic expectations on our end of, you know what, I live in a house with a whole bunch of sinners that are disobedient and talk back and do these things, right? And so how am I going to show up? Like, I know that about them. How am I going to show up? Okay, I want to show up kindly. I want to show up with love and grace and figuring out a plan for how you're dealing with those things. And I realized I just vomited like 15 different things on you. But kind of the key here is that picking that vision for your family and really realizing what is important and then putting systems around that. And just starting with just one, I think that is so wise, just one, because you don't need to overhaul your whole house. And I mean, if you want to, I by all means can help you with that. And it's so fun. I love doing that. But if you're not there, just pick one thing, you know?
I love how you were talking about realistic expectations, because I think one of those realistic expectations is we need to have flexibility, because a system that you implement that might work well for 6 weeks might not work in the next 6 weeks. And like you were talking about earlier, you may need to redirect, and it doesn't mean it failed. It just means it's a different season of life, and that's okay. And you go back to that vision that you're talking about. What is the vision for your family? And don't be discouraged that if it's not working, you need to change it.
Yeah. And I mean, you may need to tweak things along the way, right? Like you just may, but nothing is ever going to go. That ideal day that you're painting for yourself and kind of planning out, it will never go that smoothly. Somebody's going to vomit or get lice, and you're going to have to, I mean, everything is going to happen the moment you start to be intentional and you're trying that, right? So don't give up. Like I could not agree more, because we'll give up and say, well, that didn't work for me. That didn't work for me. But really, if you're just going from thing to thing, that's not working for you. Like we need to be intentional. Like we must be intentional with our people. The time goes by so fast, and your babies will be gone before you know it. Oh, yeah. I'm not going to cry. I'll hold it together here. It just goes by so fast. And so looking back, I'm like, oh my goodness, I'm so grateful that I was able to put those things in place, and that we were able to have couch time in the morning and read a Bible together, and I was able to pour into her truths and things that I'm like, I think I did that well. I think I taught her well, Lord willing. So hopefully she'll go off and still love the Lord and still want to please him. So
yeah. And what I'm hearing you say is that it was worth the time that it took.
Mm-hmm.
It was worth it. It was worth it to take a step back. It was worth it to regroup. I have a mom friend who has, she has 6 kids. They're in a range of like from 20 to like 12. And I said, the problem with me and my friends, we're just inconsistent. And she said, everybody's inconsistent. It's just about noticing and choosing to be consistent again.
Yes.
Said, oh.
Yes. Is it that easy?
Yeah. And it's that. It's just that it is worth it to try again. It is worth it to keep going back to the values that you and your family have, and to be faithful to those things and the things that God is calling you to do for your specific children who have specific needs. And I love hearing you talk about it from this very specific moment you're getting ready to launch your first of many, because I think there are very few moments in our lives where we can have that clear perspective. And we need to hear from someone who has a really tender heart from it, because she's looking it dead in the face, so that we can remind ourselves when we're not looking it dead in the face and we're saying, you know what? You guys aren't listening to this Bible study anyway. I might as well just stop, because everybody just talks while I read these Bible verses, or whatever the thing is that you're working on and not seeing. I have a lot of other questions for you, but one that I want to make sure we ask is actually, where can we find you? If someone says, I need to talk to Laura. Mm-hmm. How can they find you?
Yeah, Mama Systems on Instagram, on Facebook, on Google, MAMA, and then Systems. My website is mamasystems.net, and it has a ton of resources on there. And especially if you're a special needs mama, if you have kids with special needs, that's my heart. There's a lot of trainings on there. I have a podcast for special needs moms and adopted moms. It's called Mama Advocate. It's one of my big passions. I think that is a very lonely place to be. I think that having adopted kids, you're kind of already in that category. And it can be really lonely, because you look around and your kids aren't behaving how everyone else's are, or how you want them to be. And it's embarrassing, and you want to be quiet about it, and you want to hide in shame. And so I want to bring freedom into that, and turn on lights and say, it's okay. It's okay that your kids punch holes in the wall. And it's okay that they pulled at their shirt and torn a hole in it today after you got them dressed this morning. They look like a slob. And like all of those things are okay. And you are okay. And you're doing good work.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Well, Laura, one of the questions we love to ask everyone is how can we throw confetti with you in this season of your life right now? So think about all that's going on with all of your children and let's throw some confetti with you.
Yeah, I think just my daughter. I'm really proud of her. She's just this amazing woman. And I'm really excited about what the Lord's going to do in her life and through her. So,
yeah. Well, we are celebrating with you for that. And lastly, we just want to pray. I mean, you've said so many encouraging things to women who are listening and may be feeling lost or like they're drowning. And we know that the number one person who can help, his name is Jesus, and he's with them in those moments, and we would love to just take some time to bring them before him and to pray. So will you pray for the moms listening?
Oh, I would love to. I hope y'all are okay with me crying.
100%. I'm a crier.
My best here. Okay. Jesus, you are so kind to us. I can't even tell you how grateful I am, and I know that I don't even understand a thimble of your kindness towards us and how much you love us and the grace you have for us. I pray for mamas that feel any sort of burden or more responsibility or more things to do from this conversation. And I pray that you would just whisper to them kindly to be still. There's nothing more important than just being with you and allowing that joy and allowing that peace to overflow into our families. I pray that you would guide and direct each mama out there. Lord, your Holy Spirit who lives in them that raised Christ from the dead, will you show them what they need to be doing, the good works that they need to be doing in their home? And if there's anything outside of their home, will you make it so clear to them so that they can walk in you and be a blessing to you? God, thank you for your kindness. Thank you for this podcast. Thank you for these women. We love you so much. Amen.
Laura, thank you so much for being with us today and sharing your heart.
Goodness, thank you for having me. It was really fun hanging out with y'all.
Man, guys, that conversation was a really good temperature check for me. I appreciated just hearing from her right at that moment of launch and the fact that she was able to say, implementing these systems and prioritizing with my children and my family paid off, and that she's glad that she did it and that she took a step back in order to put those things in place. I am definitely thinking about some systems I want to put in place. And we're also thinking about having another conversation with her specifically about special needs and adoption. So if that's something you're interested in, please let us know.
Yeah, so if you guys enjoyed this episode, please share it with your friends. And you can find us over on social media. Give it a like, subscribe to our channel at Blessings in Motherhood.
Yep. So we hope to hear from you soon. Thanks for listening.
Bye, guys.